Welcome, everyone. This is the monthly DAO worker meeting. So the agenda for this is just a quick overview of from each of the worker proposal leads to kind of give an update on what's been happening with their proposals. Those are like very quick, 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And then it's open forum. So let's get rolling. I'll kick things off. Okay. All right, so here's my update. And the meeting, actually, my full meeting hasn't happened yet. I think it's next week, Tuesday probably, or something like that. So if you want more details, I encourage you to join that call. It's typically a much longer review, but I'll just quickly go through my 7 worker proposals as far as March update. So dashboard, key KPIs, monthly fee crypto handle registrations, net profit, and uptime. Monthly fee crypto handle registrations were up significantly, 400%, primarily attributed to a successful Twitter contest that the marketing group has run. Yeah, that's probably primarily it on the fee crypto handle registrations. I'll talk about the domains here as well. And in terms of net profit, there was actually an increase in that for quite 20%, but that's attributed to the fact that we didn't spend our marketing dollars in February, whereas we did in March. So it's just basically still staying on budget, but we underspent in February, so that's why the growth there. Uptime is back to 99.9. We had some issues with email back in February, but those have been resolved. In terms of budget, as you can see, we're on budget, actually under budget, both on USDC and FIO Liquid. Total combined under 5,700. The website stats, we had almost 12,000 UVs, 67% increase, new dashboard accounts, 4403. It's a 200%. That's in line with the growth of your crypto handle registrations, and a big spike in conversions as well. And that's again primarily attributed to the Twitter campaign. Also on the paid side, we actually had a bunch of renewals. I'll talk about that on the domain side, which is likely a contributing factor here to the paid conversion increase. So these are the stats in more detail. You can generally see, that growth here, as I mentioned. And domain stats, these are basically domain stats. There was almost 100% increase, but I actually started to report this number because I thought it was very interesting for March. So these stats actually include renewals. Oops, sorry. So they always had. And I've never reported the renewal percentage because it was fairly small, but in March, it actually represented 78% of all quote unquote registrations versus 16% in February. So obviously a huge spike, and obviously primarily attributed to the fact that a lot of the pre-sale domains were expiring in March. So whoever had those was renewing. That would be the month in which they would have that renewal. And gross profit overall, we had almost 100% increase as well. And again, primarily attributed to the renewal. So 2 good trends in March. One is a successful Twitter campaign. The other is a bunch of renewals. Net profit increase overall, 71%. So this is what the dashboard generated, $4,500. Versus the spend here, so that overall net profit actually went down. That's primarily because the acquisition costs, as you can see, went from 268 to 8,000. That's still within budget, but we underspent in February. There was no major release in March. The 112 release was delayed, some complications plus some staffing issues. So that's actually now been launched last week or last Tuesday, and included some landing pages redesigns and usability enhancements. So when you say landing page after login, so if you log into the dashboard right now, you're likely to see all sorts of different kind of things that are recommended for you to do, and they are actually dynamic based on kind of where you are with the Theo protocol discovery in terms of, did you register a Theo crypto handle? Did you map it? Do you have some tokens and things like that? It would actually give you a different recommendation. So it's actually pretty cool. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. And we're currently working on Twitter landing page. That's the focus. We plan to roll it out actually next week and have a campaign around it towards the end of April. And in design, we have Theo crypto handle profile pages. Actually, we just completed the design on that. So that's probably going to be in queue later. On the marketing side, we did a bunch of email marketing and emails sent out in March. As you can see here, we did a Google AdWords video test that didn't really pan out in terms of return on ad spend. And we did this Twitter contest that I mentioned that did pretty well. And in April, more email campaigns, discounted domains on OpenSea, sponsored articles, and Twitter campaign. That's kind of was planned. This is a quick view of how our Milk Road newsletter campaign performed. It obviously underperformed, just like most everything else we've tried in the past. So the return on ad spend was just 0.04. So that means for $1 spent in advertising, we made 4 cents. So that's obviously very, very bad, but it was actually better than anything else we tried before. The cost of acquisition was $39 versus, for example, Twitter, $63 in February. Wrapping, the average time to wrap is not in place yet. I need to automate that. Still very little activity on the OpenSea. And we actually had a reduction in the wrap token trading volume on Uniswap, and stayed on budget here. No major activity.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to touch on that one. Like I know there seemed to be some issues when I was messing with that, and I know Eric was. So I just wondering about that, because this KPI, I feel like it's been not in place yet for a while. Are we going to get a place where that's, because I feel like it's still not, like, seems at least to be ready for mass adoption at this point. I'm still trying to see where we are with it.
Yeah, that is a good point. I share that concern. It seems like we're having problems more often than we should. So, you know, I'm monitoring that, and if we did actually put in some enhancements in place that were causing some of the issues, was primarily related to accessing the history node. We now kind of have this fallback history node way where if one fails, the oracle kind of goes to the other. There are also some other ideas of how we could potentially improve that. That seems to be the primary reason why we see failures, is one of the oracles cannot access the history node on Theo, or history information, or kind of know what's going on Theo. There have been some issues with Infura as well. So you know, my strategy as I take this over is just let's let it kind of ride and see what happens, and based on that, determine if we need to invest more into kind of building things, improving the Oracle to be more reliable, and then ultimately probably, you know, something that is kind of too late to do, but the decision to require all 3 out of 3 oracles, which is primarily driven by price, to make sure that it's reasonably priced, might not have been the right decision, and that there's always, you know, it seems to be that there's always one oracle that something broke, and obviously then it doesn't work, versus if it was, let's say, 3 out of 5, then probably would have been more stable. But yeah, we continue to troubleshoot those, and then yeah, my plan is to put that in place. It's just I want this automated. So I need to kind of queue it up for the dev team, and I had other priorities for them so far.
Cool, thanks.
Contributors, not much changing there. The KPIs are paid contributors, which are unchanged. Contributor satisfaction, which we haven't done in a while, but I do plan to do in the next couple of months. And uptime has been unchanged, and we are on budget. In terms of highlights, we've done the new worker proposal workflow. that is starting May, and I'll talk about that separately, just as a reminder to everybody here in a second. And no major work planned for April. Block Explorer, the count is still 2. That's a primary KPI and uptime. Bug to fix. It's just, I'm not even gonna put that KPI in place because it's not actually gonna persist next month, and it's just horrible. I mean, it's just that they're very, very slow. But at the flip side, we only paid them $1,000, so and that's to block, and EOS authority is not paid anything. So I guess you get what you pay for is the bottom line. Yeah, continuing to work on bugs. Ledger, not much happening there. We have been quoted 4 months wait on Ledger approval. Apparently, there's been some slowdown on the Ledger side and in approving any new enhancements to their apps. They probably cut staff, I would assume, but I don't know that for a fact. So we're just waiting. There is an option to potentially pay for an audit ourselves, but I'm still not clear how that would accelerate things. So our vendor is making that, trying to figure that out and see if they can recommend that to us or not, if it would substantially increase the speed or not. Grafana, roughly unchanged. There's been a small degradation in uptime, but overall it's running. It's actually likely related to the fact that we had to reindex some things because we roll out a new report that I'm still troubleshooting, which is this TPIT report, which is actually a pretty cool report. It will tell you how much revenue is generated to the foundation by each TPIT, but it's still buggy, so I'm still working on figuring that out. And steering committee, not much happening here. Active worker proposals are the same. Budget is $1,000 under budget. That's primarily because one member decided not to take payment. And obviously bunch of meetings that were happening in March, primarily around the new worker proposal reviews. And just continuing to have regular and ad hoc meetings, and board meeting with new steering committee candidates is planned, I think, for next week to kind of potentially establish a new steering committee composition. And that's it for me. So
I'll go next real quick, just making sure that the board gets paid, and we actually are updating the multi-sig for the Gnosis safe because we still have the old board members on there, and the last there's 3 different. So I learned through Gnosis safe is you can remove all the old members in one swoop, but for each additional member you add to a Gnosis safe, you have to do that one at a time, meaning you can't queue up the next proposal until the other one executes. So we're on the 3rd of 3 to remove the old board members, and that should hopefully finish the next few days, which is nice. And that's pretty much it from my side. Things will be adjusting next month when we move into a new, more kind of treasury role that I'll be doing. Also give a quick update on the Tri-Crypto Fund. I think the last I checked, it was about 550, might probably actually more today, thousand. So that's nice, and meaning that's gone up in value. And just a reminder on that, it's a combination of wrapped Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDT. And so as the value, like today, Ethereum went up, or Bitcoin has been going up as well. As those go up, it's slowly selling it into USDT. So essentially, that'll be a way that if we ever need USDT, we can just pull some liquidity out of that pool that we're providing right now, and we'll immediately have that USDT kind of already ready for us. It kind of buys and sells as the market goes up and down, and so far it's working out for us. So board made the decision to kind of take a risk on doing that, and so far I think it's working out well. We're also earning curve tokens with that as well, which is kind of neat. So those are the type of things that I'll try to be doing more of in the future as we're kind of thinking about our treasury management strategies and things like that.
all right, thank you, Luke. Next up, Eric. Is Eric on? Yeah, Eric's on.
Yep, sure. Everyone. All right, so core chain for March, we were $1,200 under budget there. The main focus in March, So we're doing two things. One is we're packaging up this release that's going to be this 3.5.2.9 release, which with a bunch of the new FIPS, mainly around kind of, actually they're all over the place now. So a lot on permissions, doing the ability to do things like, alternate keys for encryption and kind of all of that. Ability to kind of create FIO chain accounts and just directly create accounts and things like that is the goal to just roll that out. What I've done is transfer that. So the new team is Mike, who's a release manager, who you've heard, Ed and Pavo. So I've transferred the release piece of that to Mike. He's leading that up. He's only works about a third time. He actually has another job at Lockheed Martin. So it'll, be in that kind of queue and probably a little bit slower than if it was like managed full time, but he's rolling along with that one. I don't know on the timing on that one exactly, but I think it's still at least a month out for that release. We're having some discussions whether we put this FIP that allows you to register, kind of has a permission structure, a somewhat complex permission structure that Ed created that allows you to register crypto handles. For if you own a domain, you can kind of set up accounts that can register handles on your domain. I think that's needed. Pablo's looking to implement something like that in the dashboard. So we're talking about adding that into the release, which would probably add a couple weeks onto it. I don't think it would add a ton onto that release and worth doing. So that transfer of kind of release management and Ed taking on kind of the entirety of development, QA, SDK updates and everything, which is going to be the new process for FIP or any other feature or bug development, is also underway. So he's been kind of taking that on, doing great. And I mean, I think the process will work fine, going forward. So that's what I've been working on. So what did we do in March? FIP 39, again, just completed some final QA and UAT. I am doing that piece. FIP 40, which is the piece that's more of the new process that Ed's taking on, is underway. And then in DevOps, we did complete finally the shutdown of some servers and some services that we weren't sure were fully being used. Again, these aren't huge cost savings. All of the big costs really are needed right now. Things like the large databases that we run and the security, the firewalls that we run are important and needed, but it's always good to shut down those things that cost, maybe $50 a month or something like that. And that starts to add up over time. So completed that in April, again, just the release. I think the transition's pretty done. I've been recording just trying to get my thoughts into video recordings. I posted out a wrapping recording, a couple wrapping recordings I will be posting out when I package up the next SDK release. Which LF1 is working on, I think, this week. As soon as they finish that up, that'll complete testing for the release, and I'll package it up and kind of record how to do that. It's actually fairly simple and already documented on the GitHub, but it's good to have a video of that as well. As far as KPIs, not a ton of change. Time spent on dev versus or core versus kind of features, 40%. Because a lot of the FIP work is not considered what I'd call core, but we did have some core and kind of performance stuff that we were doing. So maybe 40% of that is spent on core. Bug fix time, no change. So these don't change until we do releases. So these will all bump up, and test coverage and security coverage won't change. Bug fix time, we actually don't have a ton of bugs in this release. That may not change too much, but it's still doing pretty well. Moving to the right here, no change. Again, a lot of these are release dependent, no change, and no change on chain performance and release. Moving to integration support. So under budget there, again, though, some of the work that I was expecting to be done last month for this SDK mainly pieces and some improvements. So as we add an encryption key, so an encryption key for FIO will allow you to set a different key to encrypt your requests and OBT data than your standard FIO key. That is requiring some updates to the SDK to dig in a little bit. The SDK was built with the assumption that we have one kind of FIO key used for everything. So those fixes are getting done by the LF1 team and packaging that up. So I think some of this under budget might need to be used this month to cover that, because it might be a week of work or so. What did we focus on in March? Oh, there's the auto renew bundles, this ongoing kind of ability to automatically renew bundles for users who are on the free crypto handle service. Mainly this is Opera right now. And if they run out of bundles, we don't want them to have to go find out a way to add more bundles to their account. So we actually monitor those accounts, renew the bundles from one of the free buckets when they hit, I think it's 5 or under bundles. So that's right now. Mike actually that was originally done by Todd, hit up against the shoals a little bit, and Mike took over and got up to speed on the Go code. So that's written in Go, got up to speed on the Go code, made modifications, did an awesome job, and now deployed that in UAT. I'm waiting on DevOps to deploy that so I can do some UAT testing, and then we'll deploy that. I'll probably go over it with you, Pavo, and then we can deploy that to production if it's looking good. Again, transitioning to Adam on the support pieces. I'm starting to tag him on support issues and get him up to speed on the questions that are asked. He's been in the loop on most of that. I don't think that'll be that difficult for him to take that over. But doing that as well, I did clean up all this, a lot of the DevHub stuff, a lot of the content there, made sure all the PRs were merged, and a lot of GitHub cleanup. In April, again, the SDK 2.9 is the new one that will be associated with this upcoming release. Let's see. Got the auto renew bundles and transition. That's about it. I think too on the KPIs, these don't generally change. I mean, it was still 99.9% dev hub uptime when I checked and created this for March. SDK timed integration, these aren't going to change, and SDK feature coverage won't change. That's 100%. There's no features that aren't covered by our SDK, so I'm not even sure those are really that worthwhile tracking right now. Any questions on any of this? That's about it. On the wrapping side, yeah, I agree. I somewhat agree. Like, we created wrapping. So the Oracle is the software that runs between the FIO chain and the Polygon and Ethereum chains. It's run by 3 different block producers, FIO block producers, and we don't have control of those servers. So anytime something goes down, it was released without any monitoring or anything like that. And the Oracle software itself was built with this idea that we wouldn't retry failures, right? The failure system that we put in place was that it would get reported and sent out for a manual, wrap by the Oracle or oracles that failed to do the wrap or the unwrap. That process is in place, and actually with the wrap status page where you can view the wraps actually works well, though slowly. And as Pablo mentioned, just the reliance on 3 oracles to always be working, also on several different APIs. So we call into what's called an Infura API to do, a ping every minute for wrap statuses. And if those go down during the time of a wrap, that can be problematic as well. So you have a lot of variables in there. And I do like what Pablo mentioned in the approaches. And what we decided before we even launched this was, if things broke, figure out how to improve that process, right? So one of the things is this reliability of history nodes. So we did put in place this ability to use a backup history node. Unfortunately, the most recent error was the history node was up and running fine. It just wasn't indexing past like March 18th, but it thought it was. So hard to catch stuff like that. Like, why is it failing? And eventually Mike dug in and found the problem. A different Michael from EOS USA found that wasn't indexing appropriately. He recommends not relying on history nodes for doing the monitoring of the chain. And there is a way to do that just through calls and crawling blocks a little bit. That wouldn't probably be too complex. So changes like that can be put in place to improve wrapping. I do think we need to do that. Anyhow, just thought I'd leave with that. And better reporting, I think, as well will help there. Just knowing when things go wrong is an important time element. All right, that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I was just thinking like even like a bot that just notifies, hey, a wrap failed, or it's been 5 minutes and we've got 2 or 3 signatures. Where's the third? Something like that would be great. But glad to know that's still being worked on and improved. And it's funny to hear you talk about this because it sounds very similar to way back in the beginning of EOS when we were doing EOS DAC, building tools on the EOS infrastructure. Like there were things that just didn't show up because the issue node went down, or some oracle that we were relying on to scrape chain data and parse it and put it into a database, and make it available for the front end, some cron didn't work or whatever. So often it's complexity that isn't directly related to the chain. It's just tools that our tools rely on. So interesting.
Yeah, no, I think we could do better reporting for catching failed wraps. I mean, we already kind of show it on our wrap, the wrap dashboard there. So we could send something out to Discord, right, and just notify us. Would be nice. Anyhow. But yeah, a lot of moving parts, right? Really interesting.
All right. Thank you, Eric. David, you're up next.
Yeah, so quick update, as it was mentioned, coordinated in the board call for next Tuesday, the 18th, 3 o'clock Mountain Time, to have the board review and talk to the steering committee candidates and make decisions on the new steering committee structure. So everybody who's either on the steering committee or a steering committee candidate should have received a calendar invite for that. Luke, I just noticed you were somehow left off, so I added you. So you just got the calendar invite. Don't know how that happened, but I think everybody is accounted for there. And then as far as cash flow, the recent changes in the worker proposals to reduce spend combined with the market bounce that we've seen here. The estimate now is with no income and no change in token prices, that the combined runway is about 27 months and the non-FIO runway is about 18 months. And that, again, to emphasize, that assumes, no income. So for example, the work that Luke is doing with Curve, after a month or so of that, it would be worthwhile to start estimating what we think might be the future income, and that will obviously extend the runway. And then any income from the dashboard and from the work that Wayne's doing in the BD side, all of that will further extend the runway as well. That is the high level for my front.
All right. Thank you, David. Ash, you're next.
Sure, let me share my screen. All right, taking a look back at March, and I think I ran through a lot of this on our last DAO monthly a couple of weeks ago, but I'll run through this quickly again. Looking back at March, our primary focuses on the brand and partner side. We had 2 larger campaigns, the largest of that being our March to 1 million campaign in celebration of hitting our 1 million FIO crypto handle registration milestone. And the second being a celebration of hitting our 3rd anniversary as a project. The March to 1 million campaign was one of the largest campaigns that we have run over the last probably 6 months or so. A slew of activities attributable to that campaign. We did run a contest that was promoted across our socials, pushing people to register a FIO crypto handle and submit that registration for consideration in terms of winning a prize pool based on the creativity of the FIO crypto handle. We also coordinated a lot of these activities with our partners. Those activities were primarily either social based or Twitter Spaces based, which is of course social as well. But we did see a lot of pretty positive amplification from reaching out to and collaborating with our partner network via the release of tweets, posts, etc., or the coordination of those Twitter Spaces. Further on the brand side, just some additional promotion. Women's International Day was in March, and then promotion of the events that BD attended during March, primarily ETH Denver and NFT LA, a bit of prep work for NFT NYC, which is actually happening right now. And then on the partner side, a handful of items in terms of integration, kind of go live, promotion against that go live for, let's see, Bifrost, Crypto Mesh, SecUX, Swift. And then we collaborated a bit with Garda in terms of hosting a fireside chat. And then a small utilization campaign with OnChain. In terms of where we are focused for April so far on the partner side, we actually have a lot of these that are currently postponed due either to, I think a couple of these might be MOU conversations or reworks, and then a couple are just delays in the actual integration. But in terms of what is not postponed at this point, pulling together some final pieces in promotion of the integration with XRP Toolkit, a couple final videos for promotion of our integration into SecUX, a couple final pieces with OhmChain. And then let's see, CoinHub is the last partner integration in progress this month, or promotion, marketing activities, et cetera. On the brand side, a lot of events are occupying our time this month, which I think is a good thing. It means BB is pretty busy. Adil as well. Rio Crypto Day, NFT NYC, which is happening right now. NFT Brazil, and then I think. So actually, I take that back. I think some of these last ones are just promotional, probably go live next month, but we're just putting them into our queue to prepare. I'm just seeing if anything else down here is relevant. Not on the event side, but then in terms of collaborative, I guess, promotion on the partner / brand side, we do have a couple of Twitter spaces scheduled with 2 of our partners, Air NFTs and Ascendex, and then just prep for, upcoming holidays in May, that being, Bitcoin Pizza Day. So I think that covers all of the scheduled activities and also all of the activities from March. And then, of course, one of the largest pieces over the next couple of weeks will be making sure that everything is transferred over that needs to be transferred over from current marketing ownership over to Wayne to ensure a smooth transition as of May 1st. And I think that is about it.
All right. Thank you, Ash. And it looks like we have Emily just in time to give us a quick update on her work proposal.
Yep. Just give me a second to pull it up. I had a conflict, that's why I was late. Okay, so this is what I touched on yesterday. So essentially, the monthly fee of crypto handle registrations dropped a little bit, but we're fairly close to the target of 40,000. Domain renewals dropped. This is kind of expected. It's still higher than the previous months, but this is just because of the renewals being predominantly in February and March. So you can kind of expect the April numbers to drop. The average days completed integrations past MOU deadline, that has been improving. And this is mostly because of the dashboard integrations being fairly easy to complete. And then bugs are the same as previous. And then revenue dropped a little bit, again, mostly because of the FIO crypto handle registrations. And then the other thing that I discussed last time is just the domain renewals. So I've been keeping track of all of our partner domains and renewing them over time. Some of these I've already renewed, and these are kind of like the ones that are remaining. Obviously not all of them are being renewed, but and it kind of equals to about 560 left, which I can renew under my work proposal. So yeah, so that's something that I'm working on. If you want to look at all of the different, I guess, number of transactions, you can see that here. We did get a little bit of an increase in NFT signatures, which is kind of interesting. although, you know, that being costing a 1 penny is not going to do much of a whole lot of difference in terms of revenue, but it's still interesting to see that there's some growing activity there. This was on Air NFTs. Again, you can see that with the domains, most of the activity is on the renewal side, which is expected for February and March. Yeah, and then most of these fiat crypto handle registrations are from Opera. And yeah, that is quick update.
Thank you, Emily. All right, so that concludes our updates for the worker proposals. Now just a quick update on the Jira worker proposal system. So we actually have a new board in place that is going to house the worker proposals starting May 1st. So all the existing worker proposals are due to expire by the end of April. And when they do, we'll basically shift over to this new worker proposal. I think I covered that last time, but just as a reminder to everybody that your payments that are coming on the 1st of May will be for April. They will still use the old board, and that's where you should submit your subpayments and your payment containers and all that. And then starting May 1st, which most of the payments will be made probably the 1st of June, although we now support kind of this ongoing ability to pay. That's when we will shift to the new system.
And a quick
Yeah.
note on that for the steering committee is I haven't done it yet because David is, I think he might be done. David, you could finalize that with me, but I know you've been emailing back and forth with Glenn just to finalize his payment that he'll be requesting for the Cayman and BVI administration that he does for us. But the one I submitted, I'll be canceling and resubmitting for vote, and it's going to include another $25,000. I think it is somewhere around there. That'll be spaced out.
More than that.
Okay, yeah, so that's my bad. I thought that was included in the $950 a month that was already in there for paying the entity fees, but David saw it and noticed it, so I'm glad he did. So we'll have to make that adjustment. But a question on that, Pavo, if something like that happened in the future, we don't have the concept of a temporary adjustment. Do we literally just cancel the whole thing and resubmit a new one for the whole quarter? Or how do you deal with like, oh no, I have this thing that we didn't agree to, but now we have to do it? How do we manage that in the new model? We don't have the adjustment process. I'm not clear on how we do that.
No, there actually is adjustment process, which is a worker proposal change. So previously you kind of had two modifications. You had this either worker proposal change or this temporary increase. And it was a little confusing because one applied to a specific month versus the other applied to all the months. So with this new model where you're basically applying for a bucket of funding, right? You're saying, hey, I need X dollars or fee or whatever from this date to this date. It's much easier because there's no longer this kind of month evaluation. But to answer your question, you can, if you got approved for, let's say, your bucket of 3 months funding from May 1st to whatever, and you're now realizing, oh, well, I actually need to spend more money in those 3 months, then you can basically just submit that as a worker proposal change and adjust that. Or if it's a one-time payment, then you can basically submit a separate worker proposal for that, right? So is it
Okay,
a
that makes
one-time
sense.
payment every year? Is that what it is?
Yeah, this is a one-time payment every year that we wanted to budget for monthly. And so my talking to David about it was that my plan was I would just basically set aside a crypto handle and make it public, so people know, and I would just push the funds into that account. So it'd be building over time until we're ready to pay it out from that account. And it would be one that I manage as the lead for that proposal. That was one approach.
Well,
Open to other ideas.
what you could do is you can create a new worker proposal just for that payment, right? And basically make it last 12 months and assign a full amount to it, right? So you now be basically saying, hey, let's say it's $25,000, and it's going to be spent from May 1st to April, 31st or 30th of next year, right? And now you would be, quote unquote, if it's approved, allocated the full amount up front, so you can actually pay, let's say in May, you just pay the full amount, and it will obviously it will go down to zero, right? And you will have no more left until you basically apply, for a new one a year from now. That's another way of doing it. And if you do it this way, then the automatic system that I built to analyze the and kind of forecast the spend is going to look at this, is going to take the 25,000 divided by 12 and say, oh, okay, that means that this amount is kind of ongoing every month. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, okay, that might work. It's actually the opposite though, in that we can't pay it early. We have to pay it, beginning of next year after the year is over, the calendar year, as far as I understand. So, or maybe it comes in December. I don't know, David, you could remind me as to, maybe you and I could talk about that later. But would that still work? Meaning it's set aside and it's going to show up in the budget, but I didn't actually take the funds out yet until they're needed? Because that would be ideal for me. I'd rather not hold on the funds and have them just,
Yeah, so
sitting around.
yeah, so it's the same construct, only make your worker proposal be like January 1st of this year till December 31st, right? So that it's
Okay.
12 month in duration, and then then you can pay it in January, and it will reflect that basically every month.
Okay, yeah, I actually, what we might do then, David, is just modify the one that I have, get rid of the 950 that is kind of in there already, whatever it is, and just push that all to like, these are just entity fees that make it very clear it's separate, and they're only needed once a year, but they're budgeted for by the process Pablo just described.
Yeah, you can do it that way too. All right, so now open forum. Anything from anyone? Don't all speak all at once. All right, I'll take the silence as nobody has anything else to add. So that's the case. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.